Yo, what's up? It's Mike from Job Ready English. Just driving home and thinking about a call that I had today with a young man who has successfully gotten into a very difficult investment bank, sort of the grand scheme of things. And we were talking about, final interviews he needs to go through. He's going to spend some time at that bank and then he'll have an assessment process at the end of it. And I thought something that I've never really talked about end to end is kind of sort of what I would call perfect interview prep, or as good as it can be. Now, something to kind of recognize very much from the beginning is you cannot be over prepared, in the sense that if you've really done your reps, you've researched, likely questions, you've done your scripts, and most importantly, you have put the burden of effort into rinsing and repeating your questions in a random format. And this is as opposed to writing out a script of questions from 1 to 700 and then mumbling under your breath to go through every single question, which is not realistic because that's not what's going to happen in the real thing. Now, I'm going to sort of structure out this response to most of the times most people will get, 4 or 5 days to prepare, right? So what's the perfect way to prepare? First of all, you use something like Glassdoor, or if you're in the UK, something like Student Room for graduate jobs, or any kind of forum where you think this seems to be a reliable source of information from people who have most recently gone through the process. Of course, we've structured our past the interview packs, and they have primarily been driven by the fact that people trust our research and information, but the best information is always the most recent one from the most reliable source, which is why, our packs will only be as good as recent as they've come out. And particularly for large companies, they don't tend to change their process that often because it's really quite time consuming and it's very costly to change your process as a large company. We're talking about, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds to change that across, many, many different positions. When you're kind of putting the questions together, you really want to think about the 80-20 rule, which is what are the 20% of questions I can choose, which are going to prepare me for 80% of the potential outcomes. Now, a caveat to that is you cannot prepare for every single question you might get asked, because there will always be surprises, particularly if you're doing a face-to-face interview. Sometimes people might just, throw in new questions because they just like the sound of it, or they're just curious about something. So you could waste an inordinate amount of time trying to prepare for every single question. And very often when I do one-to-one consulting, people will give me 20, 30, 40 pages of scripts and say, shall we go through my answer to 57 different questions? And which my response is, well, I feel that this is largely a massive waste of time. And I would say you want to put a time frame around this of about 1 to 2 hours. A lot of people can get lost in rabbit holes for research and questions, and you're looking for recency and reliability of sources. Ideally, if you can get this from people who have actually passed their interview, even better. But the recency you're kind of looking at is the last 3 to 6 months. The smaller the company, the more difficult it is to do this. But I would say you want to pick out no more than 10 to 12 questions, because you've only got a couple of days. You need to structure your practice around being able to deliver good answers for a few questions rather than poor answers for lots of questions. That's kind of like your day one. Say you got your email in the morning and you're stoked, because something I often think about is, this isn't all that you've got to do in your day. Most people will be studying, working, have family, friends, a partner, a general sort of calendar of things to do. So they're not just going to be doing this. So you need to sort of structure it in a way that allows flexibility. So say you sit there, and I would put a timer. Whenever you're doing prep as well, I strongly advise that you get rid of your phone. put your phone into airplane mode, turn your notifications off, set a timer on your PC for an hour. This is more than enough time. So you can basically take a Word document or a Google Doc and just be copying and pasting the questions in. And ideally, you're trying to get a feel for the format of the interview. Will they ask me, 6 questions? Will they ask me 10 questions? How long will I get to answer? Will it be face to face? Will it be video? You should have got that from the email, but just in case you're going in blind, will it be a single person? Will it be a panel interview? The variables, these are stuff that you want to prepare for. And by doing this from the most recent interview, this gives you the opportunity to prepare for such a thing. And again, this is not bulletproof, and there will be some of you watching this that say, well, yeah, but oh my God, what about the 20% of questions that I could get? So that's what we're going to do now. So you've done, say, your hour, maybe 2 hours, that's it. I would say maximum 2 hours of research. Then you want to get your scripts together. Now, this is ideally done on day 1 or day 2. It should not continue on past day 2. So you've got these 5 days to prepare for an interview. So on day 1, day 2, I would say if you have no interview scripts, then maybe this is going to take you max 4 hours. If you have something because you've done interviews before, then maybe 2 or 3 hours. No more than 4 hours, right? So what you really want to do is, most interviews are pretty simple. They're going to say, why do you want to work for this company? Why do you want to do this job? They may ask you for a great person, like, who are you? Tell me a bit about yourself. Because why? They haven't read your CV. They haven't had the time, because you're the 6th interview that they've had to do today. So you want to prepare your answers for this. And in fact, if you check out application success secrets down below, there is a list of the 28 most common interview questions that I listed out. Now, the rest are probably behavioral. This could change. You might get strength-based situational judgment. You might get some technical, though it's unlikely for the first round. Now, when preparing for competency or behavioral questions, you kind of know what skills they're going to ask you because it's contained within the job description. If I want somebody to make burgers for me, then I'm not going to be asking them, how are their telephone skills? I'm going to say, well, how are you making burgers? Have you made burgers before? Have you worked in the kitchen? What's your experience of working in the food service industry? I'm going to be asking questions and skills which are based around the job that you're going to do. Of course, you do get the odd interview where they just seem to ask really bizarre questions, but again, we want to maximize our preparation to prepare for 80% of circumstances that could occur. Now, for your behavioral interview questions, I've used the format for years, which is called STAR Stories. So you pick out the 4 or 5 best stories from your professional life, or from your volunteering or extracurricular, or from your academics, ideally in that order. That put you in the best light, because most people know how to answer skills-based questions using a STAR format. They just keep using a different situation and task. And here's a trick: you don't need to think of 27 different examples. 5 or 6 is more than enough, and if you need to, you can repeat one of your examples, because most interviews don't exceed 7 questions. That's just sort of standard, right? Interviews are sort of 20 minutes to half an hour, 7 questions, done. Now, what you could then do is that you could take your, sort of list of questions. You could think, well, the best answer where I demonstrated teamwork was question number 1. If you're really uncertain how to demonstrate good teamwork skills, just stick that into Google. Say, what are good teamwork skills? And, again, don't get sort of too caught up in the weeds. You pick up 4 or 5, kind of words or phrases or understandings about how to answer this question, and you just sew this into your story. The reason why I like this approach is because ultimately you want to be telling stories which put you in the best light, and also which you feel comfortable talking about, because they're cool stories and they make you look good. They're easy to remember because you've probably spoken about them before. You don't want to be picking really, sort of esoteric, random, or stories that basically sometimes when I've sat down in one-to-ones and people, and I've been looking at people's face and I'm like, do you even like this story, or does it bore you? And they're like, oh, it bores me. I don't really like it. And I'm like, then don't use it. Not everybody has a wealth of experience professionally, but everybody's got experience. Everybody's got some form of experience they can use. And you always want to kind of be erring on the side of what's the question that I can use that just makes me look good and I feel confident talking about. It kind of lights me up a little bit. That's kind of what you want to be thinking about. So now you've got your list of questions, you've got your star stories, you have prepared your answers for, why this company, why this role, and why you. We've done all of those videos. If you want the worksheets and examples and all of that, just buy one of our courses, but you don't have to be frankly honest with you. It's there. The reason why I started Job Ready English is because it would enable anybody to be able to pass an interview. And I've talked to many people that have just by watching the videos. It's all free, right? So then what you want to do is, now let's say you've got 3 days left. So day one, you've got your questions. Day two, you sat down and did your scripts. Day 3 to 5, all you want to be practicing is speaking out loud and trying to get away from the script. So you can start off the first, and I would do this in like 20-minute chunks. And the way that you do this is maybe once you read through your script as written, right? So you read through, well, tell me about yourself. Well, my name's Mike and blah, blah, blah. Why do you want to work for this company? Well, there are 5 reasons I want to work for BlackRock. Why do you want to be a financial analyst? Well, as a financial analyst, I would blah, 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 right? So you read through your script, you kind of get used to it. The reason why a lot of people will kind of be glued to their script and will not deviate is just fear of uncertainty. But the point is that recall is the best way to learn, and you're not here to memorize stuff. A lot of people will be like, oh, I wish that I could, memorize my scripts. And it's like, why? It's not a test. No one cares. Like, no one knows what your script is. And if you don't rehearse it ad verbatim, and very often when people do learn stuff ad verbatim, or basically word by word, they sound really robotic and they sound really boring and really kind of like, ugh. And then I went to the store and I bought some milk and blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, oh my God, you sound so bored and this is so boring. So then what you want to do is just rinse, repeat, answering questions at random. Just use a random number generator from Google, right? That's all you need to do. Just using a random number generator on Google. Set a timer for 20 minutes. Set the random number generator between 1 to 12 and 1 to 15 and how many questions you have. And just practice answering those questions. Now, if you want to be really on the ball, then you would record your answers. So by recording your answers, you'll be able to create some sort of feedback loop. Because what a lot of people will do is they'll just kind of give their answers with their eyes shut, and they won't basically have a look back at what they've done. And a large part of why the reason why people book one-to-ones with me is just to have an outside source or an outside opinion from somebody who they deem to have more experience about these things. And then I can just, correct stuff that I see and go through things for stuff for people. Now, the rule of thumb is the more repetition you do, the more mock interviews you do, the better your interview is going to be. Now, importantly, I would not do any prep on the day of the interview. So you want to maximize being as fresh as possible, get a good night's sleep. If you can do nothing on the day, then great. If not, just engage in what you're engaging in. And try not to suck out a lot of your mental energy by just doing stuff on your phone, right? Because ultimately your ability to make decisions and to do, good stuff on a daily basis is limited, right? And a lot of people get really fatigued throughout the day because all they do is just sit on their phone. And they're making really stupid, tiny decisions like, should I open WhatsApp for the 70th time? Or should I read the 2,700 messages that are in the 15th group chat that I've just been added to? No, because none of this stuff really matters, and it's not going to contribute to your success. Now, if you get anxiety about putting down your phone, then really that says more about you than how much you're needed. I can say, as somebody who probably has people that do, pay for my attention, I will try to avoid using my phone during the day as much as possible, because it just doesn't serve me. In fact, during the day, there's only a very small number of people who can even get through to me. The rest will just be fielded and go straight to voicemail. But you want to make sure that you're as fresh as possible. Don't be doing any more rehearsing on the day, because basically it's kind of like game day, right? So it's kind of like, you're going to have a prize winning boxing fight. You don't want to be doing loads of training on the day. You're going to fatigue yourself. You might do little bits and pieces, but you're not going to do anything that you're going to find majorly stressful. In fact, you want to be as relaxed as possible as you can be. So if you can find the time to maybe watch something that you enjoy or do something that you love and be as relaxed as possible, you're going to do much better on the day. And that, in a nutshell, is how I prepare people for any interviews, whether that be for an apprenticeship, internship, graduate position, entry-level professional, mid-level professional manager, senior manager, or, VP role, director, C-level, that sort of. It's always the same thing. It's always the same thing that we go through, and it is all about reps. It's all about getting as much repetition as possible, and people will procrastinate because they will avoid the repetition and looking bad to feel good by just going over and over their scripts again and again because it's what they feel familiar with. And if you do that, you should have no problem passing your next interview.